Hello, everyone. What is the point of even trying to sell literary fiction online? Now, before I get to that, I will make a point that is somewhat related and say if you would like to support this channel, you can purchase my book, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy, and there is a link in the description section. It's somewhat of a combination between A Tale of Two Cities, Anna Karenina, and a little of Crime and Punishment as well. And it also has a lot of Shakespearean, Dickensian, as well as Melvillian, if that's a word, overtones. Now, what I really want to talk about, and this is actually kind of related because I've been trying to sell the Ecstasy and the Ignominy, but I haven't had a lot of success. I mean, I've sold more than any of my other books, but it's still a relatively small number, around maybe 2 dozen, um, and very little reviews. And the few reviews I I have received have been from people who just didn't get the book and didn't even finish the book. But in any way, what's the point of even trying to sell literary fiction online? Because it's not really very effective. In fact, I don't really know of anyone who writes the kind of fiction that I write who has been successful online. Like I really don't know anyone, especially men. Um, there may be some female authors who write some similar things, but there's no one that I can point to who advertises their books mainly online, where I can say, well, that person's successful, so why can't I do it? Because I don't know of anyone who would fit that bill at this stage, which makes me think that there's no point in even trying to sell literary fiction online because there just isn't an audience or market for it. It's a very unfortunate conclusion to come to, but I think that may be the case. Well, why is that? Well, it does seem to me that, especially that the romantasy genre, if you will, has taken up so much space in terms of what's seen and what's advertised that there's very little room for anything else. I mean, not just literary fiction, but thrillers, psychological thrillers, action detective stories. Just when it comes to genres of all types, I really don't see an interest. It's mainly romance or fantasy or a combination of the two. I don't really see a lot of interest in other genres. And it's not, by the way, I'm not saying that there's inherently a problem with these other genres. It's just when one genre takes up so much space that then that can prevent people from seeing other genres or experimenting with other genres. This can apply even to movies, for example. Like I think the superhero genre receives far too much attention in that regard, because um, it's all about action and spectacle, and you don't other films aren't really being recognized in the same way. And so you have a genre that is completely saturated. Like I used to enjoy superhero movies um, in the 2000s, but then they were a rare treat. There were the X-Men films, the Spider-Man films, the Christopher Nolan Batman films. Um, but once you started getting the cinematic universe, they just completely took over, and it became more about spectacle than writing complex characters. And now it has usurped almost all other genres to the point where they don't really make movies for people like me anymore. I like historical films. I like period pieces. I like historical epics. I like psychological thrillers. I like gothic horror. Um, but those films are relatively few in number, and even just the classic buddy comedy, the parody film, those are very rare. And so it's one of those things where they don't really make films for people like me, which is why I rarely go to the movies anymore. And and so that example can be applied within film. but I just think there's an oversaturation. The equivalent in the problem with cinema is that it's become almost too male focused, um, and not and you don't really see a lot of stories about female characters, which is unfortunate. In in literature, it's the opposite, where you see far too much focus on female characters, written primarily from a female point of view. Which again, there's no that's I don't have a problem with that. It's just it creates a scenario where you don't see enough diversity, and it's usually not female characters who are written from a point of view of a dramatic narrative. It's usually written from a point of view where even men may not completely understand it, because it's written primary. It's preaching to the choir. It's not the characters aren't written in such a way where the themes are universal. They're written very much towards a certain kind of audience. It's not like a Shakespearean heroine who's written, from a complex point of view, and her femininity is definitely an essential part of her character, but she's also written in such a way where all human beings can relate to her. But no, these characters tend to be written in an almost one-dimensional sort of way where it's only where you only have one perspective. It's not a nuanced kind of perspective, um, where the themes are more humanist and universal, and so you end up in these scenarios where the character writing is very one dimensional, so to speak. And now, of course, I love writing female characters. Female characters are actually my favorite. I actually prefer writing female characters over male characters because I find that the female point of view is actually far more interesting, and I find that there's a poetry to the female point of view, that there's a delicacy to it, a sensuality to it that I just do not find within the male point of view. Um, but I try to write from a foundation of drama and tension and exploring deep human themes. It's not about catering to the base instincts of audiences. I think that's the problem. It's not that authors are writing female characters. It's that they're catering to the base instincts of the audiences, not universal themes. Um, and Another thing, though, is that people really don't seem to appreciate anymore um, complex language, literary language. They do not appreciate poetry. That they do not appreciate beautiful and complex writing, because in a world where people have grown up with the internet, and I'm not blaming it all on the internet. There's the education system, there's intellectual laziness, there's a lot of factors, but is that people are not soaked and immersed within language. Therefore, they think that anything that is intellectually complex or difficult to understand or poetic, they think anything like that is inherently pretentious. That's what they label it, even though that's not the right use of that word. Um, Pretentious means pretending to be something that you're not, pretending to be interested in something that you're not. You could be pretending to be interested in anything. You could pretend to be interested in sports, literature, whatever. It doesn't matter. Um, but sincere artistry that is complex, that is poetic, that is beautiful, that is not pretentious. That The reason why poetry and beautiful writing and literary fiction, the reason why those things matter is because they reveal deeper truths that sometimes cannot be expressed through ordinary language, just like music can. But when you have people who are not trained in that environment, when you have people who are not accustomed to that environment, when they've only grown up with shallow and surface level content online, then sometimes they will not recognize it or appreciate it when they see it. And I think that's the problem with trying to sell literary fiction online, is that many people just don't recognize that kind of content or appreciate it when they see it, because the environment that they are in does not invite that level of appreciation. And so I think that that's the reason why it is so difficult to sell literary fiction online, because it's an environment where it's far more about not relevancy. It's not about relevancy. Even when I try to search topics of literary fiction, literary topics, I often cannot find what I'm looking for. It's about um, retention. It's about what people will click on first. It's about very shallow and superficial thinking. It's not about at all deep appreciation for intellectual topics and philosophical topics. Sometimes you can have people who will appreciate the surface level aesthetics of something, um, like a literary text, um, but very rarely do people actually go deeper. And sometimes you can get some surface level appreciation for authors, classic authors who already exist, who have been established, who have been around a while, whether it's authors who are still alive or authors who have been around for hundreds of years. But especially when it comes to um, new authors have a very difficult time being recognized because they do not have. Because another problem with trying to sell literary fiction online is that it's far more about social proof. It's about your reputation, how many followers you have, what you look like, this or that. It's far more about your charisma, and not necessarily if you have written the best book. Um, those are entirely two separate things. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people often conflate the two. And so, just the very nature of social media does not really invite appreciation for literary fiction. And the problem is that the reason why many self published authors turn to literary fiction is that they do not have a choice. Um, because the traditional publishing industry doesn't want them because their books don't sell well there, so they have to turn to social media to promote their books. But social media is also a surface level and shallow place, and so it's one of those things where I really don't know what to do anymore because I'm not going to thrive in the traditionally published industry. I'm not going to survive there. I'm not going to survive in traditional publishing, but I'm also I just don't think I'm going to survive in social media because social media, my kind of fiction does not thrive in that environment. I don't know where it does thrive, and so I don't know. I don't have a solution to this problem. If I did, um, books like The Ecstasy and The Ignominy would be succeeding. They wouldn't be failing like they currently are. And so it's especially fortunate because when I was a kid, I had a dream of touching people with my literature, of moving them with my literature, and of making them see beauty in the world. But it just seems right now like that dream will never come true. Like it is dying, and I will die poor and alone, in poverty forever, completely underappreciated, unrecognized. Some people say, "Oh, some people are recognized after their death." Yeah, well, that's little comfort to me. I mean, yeah, it's great to have a legacy, but I'm not going to get to enjoy it. That's not a very comforting take. And so yeah, it's unfortunate that this dream that I had to give beauty to others, that dream has so far remained unrealized. So I hope you appreciated this video. Um, I will return with other topics, hopefully within the coming days or weeks. Again, my books are linked in the description section. And until next time, goodbye.